would have seen me checking this with the tape. And this is what I was saying at the end of each sheet. You make sure it's 40 millimeters off the beam all the way through. So that keeps the sheets nice and parallel through here. The other thing you want to do is just get your screw spacings right. So you can see in between here, this is one sheet. What I like to do is put one screw there, miss 2 ribs, put one screw, miss 3 ribs through the middle, put another screw. So that way when you overlap the sheet, then your next screw misses 2 as well too. So it goes 2, 3, 2, pretty much all the way through the spacings. The other thing you want to look at is always make sure you've got a 1.5 corrugate overlap between your sheets, and that is with the sheet lapping down over the top. So I'll show you a close-up of that, but you always want to make sure you've got that overlap nicely. Once I get the rest of these screwed on, then I'm going to come back and do the flashings. So I'll show you how the pressure flashings work as well. So pressure flashings go on, gutter will drop in, and then that's this roof complete. Okay, so looking down on the sheet, this is the edge of the top sheet, and then you'll see underneath the overlap of this other sheet comes along, and that's what gives you the 1.5. That's what's going to make it watertight. So you always want to make sure you've got this sheet lapping over the next sheet with the upturn up this way. There might be some circumstances where you do it the other way, but generally this is the correct method for putting it in. Okay, so with our fixings again, I've left this first screw out, so you can see the sheets just free there towards the end. The reason I've done that is because our flashing is going to come down and it's going to come across 2 ribs, and then once I put that flashing on, when I screw down through there, that is actually what's going to hold the end of this sheet into position. Alright, then looking at the rest of the spacings, this is what I was saying before, that you do 1 on the end of the sheet, miss 2, 1, usually miss 3 through the middle, 1, 2, 3, and then go another screw, and then 1 on the very end with the next sheet when it overlaps, finishes it off. And then you just follow that up and do the same up at your next row of fixings all the way through, and you're good to go. So you can either measure up each screw, which is a little bit time consuming, but I'm doing it on this roof because it's only small, or the other option is you can put a screw up this end and a screw down the very end once you get the sheet tacked in, and pull the string line through. So you'll see here our last sheet's got the turn up, and then when we come across to our next sheet, we're going to pick this up, drag it across, and then that edge there will be what comes across and laps over and gives it that 1.5 lap between the sheets. So let's do that now, and then the next screw will come in here and screw that off. And this is where I overlap it. Now, if you're doing a big roof and you're by yourself and it's a little bit awkward, you've got bigger sheets, what I tend to use is a pair of vice grips, and you can actually just put it on here and clamp the 2 sheets together, and that's going to hold it in position and not let the sheets slide down. But I don't have a very steep pitch here, so it's quite easy to manage these small sheets by myself. I'm going to measure up my 140. It's going to ensure all our screws are kept in a nice straight line. Alright, now we'll just go up the other end and do the same to tack it. Now with my last sheet here, it's actually smaller than a full sheet, so rather than cutting it, I'm actually just going to start with the factory edge here, and I'm going to bring it back, and I might lap it over an extra couple of corrugates. So rather than just lapping it the corrugate in half, it'll probably go back 2 or 3 corrugates. So we'll pop that on, see where it lands, and then hopefully that's a good enough position so that our flashing over here still laps over the corrugates nice and neatly. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. That is a beautiful fit. Oh, actually no, I might have to trim a little bit off. It's probably about 10 mil too long, which is a bit of a pain, so I'll just trim a little bit off here. I was hoping that that was going to sit in nicely. The alternative, I don't want to cut that because I know the flashing is going to cover. I could bring it across 1 extra corrugate and then get that to sit beautifully here. We've got a bit of a bigger gap. Now if I measure it and my flashing is going to cover, then I won't have to worry about cutting a bit off the sheet. Let's hope so. Oh, that's beautiful. My flashing is actually 150, and then there's a turn down here, so that's going to work out well. Now again, because my flashings, which I'll show you in a minute, are 150 wide, I'm not going to screw this rib here. So I want to probably miss a couple, 1, 2. I'll do a screw here, and then coming back, evenly space that, I'll miss another 1, 2, 3. So we've got all our roof sheets on, we've screwed down the front batten, the middle batten, and we've left the top batten off because that's where our pressure flashing is going to be sitting up at the top. So those sheets will be screwed down once we screw down through that flashing. Next step now is to put the gutter in, so I'll cut that to the size, pop that in with the downpipe outlet in there, and then we can put our 2 side flashings on, and then we'll put the back flashing on, spaghetti fix that into the brickwork, put some plugs and screws in there, silicone it up, clean the roof off, and then we're done. So now that we've got the roof sheets on, next stage is to put our flashings just around the edges. So I've got the 2 side flashings which will go on first, then I'll put this top flashing along here, screw it down, silicone the top of it up, it's called a pressure flashing. So you'll see that in a minute, it just gets spaghetti fixed against the brickwork, and then we run a bead of silicone along the top flange which is folded out, and that's it. It'll be all sealed up nice and tight. So let's make a start. Now that I've got this capping on, I'm going to go along and put plugs into the brickwork here, which will just hold this back. And at the top here, there's a little bit of a crush fold and a lip that sticks out. We call this a pressure flashing. And by putting this tight against the brickwork, we can then come back along and silicone this, which just gives it a nice seal up against the brickwork. Okay, so now that we've got this pressure flashing on, it's time to run some silicone just around this top lip here to seal it off.